to be here with you and these amazing guests you've lined up, and you know, um, let's make it happen. Obviously, we want to create a forum where it's communication, where people can express themselves, because obviously there's a lot of expression that needs to be done. And then obviously talk about solutions and how do we get better, and how do we get through some of these things, and how do we make ourselves better, and have some type of communication. Life's never perfect, but we got to find a way, because we here and we exist, and we have to make a way. We got to find a way. We got to play chess, not checkers.
Absolutely. And I want to thank you as well. Besides our bonds, our friendship, and our business relationship, you and I have been talking day in and day out. And at first, I really didn't know how to use my platform for this. I was very aware of how sensitive this situation is, and I didn't know what my place was as a woman, as a Latina. But you just said something to me that resonated with me, and it just gave me the fire. And after seeing a video entirely, I just had to do this. And I just want to thank everybody who's on board with us that will be popping up. We will be starting with Ruben Diaz at 5:30. So just be patient with us. And this is, I've had many remarks about individuals saying that this was pointless, or what is that going to do? And I stuck by my guns, and we got amazing people on board. And this will go out further than just Facebook Live and Zoom.
Right.
And if we have to have these conversations on a weekly basis, if we have to start writing letters or sending these videos and letters to our city council, police officers, we will do that. We have media involved. We have news coverage involved. We have radio people involved. We have Bronx president involved. So we have the support. We have the support, and we're gonna come out with a bang. We're gonna make this change, guys. We have the time and the leniency to do it right now. We just have to do it in a peaceful way, in a peaceful manner. And I understand that everybody's upset and people want to fight and retaliate, but this goes even to your home and your relationships. Like, how far do you get with someone when you're arguing and throwing stuff in your house? It's not too far, right? So we have to keep that in mind. We cannot continue to burn bridges. We cannot continue to burn our communities. We have to save our people as well and have respect for each other. Kevin, you want to jump in?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you on that from a standpoint of everything takes precision and strategy. But there is a point in time taken beyond this situation where when you go to your wit's end, there is a form of anger. I mean, how many of us have thrown a glass or punched a door or, right, said something to a loved one that wasn't necessarily the right thing to say? And I think, again, as a people, we are completely hurting. And, I mentioned on my show, I rattled off names, that took us over 20 years. And I can even pick out even more names, and just having conversations with older people, going back to Harlem with James Powell, 15-year-old getting killed, obviously the Watts riots. These are things that are continuously going. So when people tell me, well, why are you angry, or why are people angry, or why are people protesting, or why are people acting out? Well, there's a reason. There's a reason behind that, and it's accumulative, and it's just like a pot of water. If you boil a pot of water and you continue to boil, it's finally going to boil over. And I think that's what we're seeing play out now. And what's so hard for a lot of people is that it's playing out in front of our eyes. As people from America or Americans, we're not used to seeing displays played on our soil.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, again, Absolutely. We go back to the riots in Newark and Watts many years ago, way before us. This was pre-social media. Even what was happening in LA with Rodney King, while it was on the news, it wasn't 24-hour news cycle. It wasn't Twitter. It wasn't Instagram. And we're seeing these things. And I think, again, the conscious of people are now aware that, when Kaepernick took a knee and tried to do it peacefully, the masses called him names and said that, you know, he wasn't, he was interfering in their game. And a lot of us don't want to talk about race. Race can be very uncomfortable for a lot of people. But
Absolutely.
again, you know, it's when you have a situation where people are, and people like myself who have experienced police mistreatment, it comes to a point where you just say no more. Or where do we go from here? And not to mention, we're still dealing with a pandemic that, you know, if the science is correct, will ultimately affect us in other ways. But it comes to a point in time, and I think with most folks, and Malcolm X said it great, sometimes in the fight for freedom, there are casualties. And again, once you get to a certain point where when you can't go no more, it just comes out. And it doesn't come out pretty when it's anger and despair.
Absolutely. I want to thank everyone for joining. We have Sue Fearless on the line. We have Michael W. Ray, the moderator. And we're just sharing and putting this all out. Once again, I'm not sure what happened with Bobby, but we'll get him on if we can. If not, we will continue to move on. Thank you for his effort to be here. He's on the radio as well, so he definitely has a beautiful platform to speak on this. Kevin, before we get started with everyone else's suggestions, I know me and you have been speaking, expressing. We've even like had emotional moments together, which was a beautiful thing. Do you have any words of system changes, like any solutions that you kind of thought about where we can start off with?
Well, I think again, when you look at when these things boil over, and you know, once the fires stop and the protesting stop, now it's time for, okay, where do we go from here?
Right.
Because anger is an emotion that doesn't last forever. It's in your presence. It can be destructive, but then anger fades. So how do we get better? And again, like I mentioned when we spoke before, I think there's several things that I would love our communities and people who represent the best of our communities to do. And number one is to kind of build generational wealth. Now, somebody might say, Kevin, we're in a pandemic, and I've been if I could have wealth, I would. You know, I live in, you know, I'm living check to check, and that check is not even growing now. But there's a thing called insurance. And sometimes insurance doesn't necessarily help us in the moment, but it's again helps our generation. A lot of us, I know, unlike me and you, but a lot of us have kids and family and people that rely on us, that if we're not here. And one thing that COVID has taught us is that there's no guarantees on life beyond a day or an hour or what have you. So to be able to have insurance in place, so your generation after you is taken care of, where they can now be a little better. They can move to different neighborhoods. They can become entrepreneurs. That's one. Number two is learning how to manage money better. A lot of us, and I'll say this because I've been in that boat in my past before, a lot of us live for the moment. You know, we'll go to the club and pop bottles. We'll have the hottest whip, you know. We will dress in the best designer names, but then we look at our portfolio or the money we're putting up, it's not enough, and there's no game plan for the future. So then, you know, okay, I look like I'm $1 million, but I got a 520 credit score. What good is that? Is that really helping me beyond Saturday night? It's not. So being able to take some money, and with the power of the internet, and we realize we're students and people of the internet from our programs and what have you, and we know people are using social media on a great level. Well, then why not look for some classes? There are opportunities to learn classes on trading and stocks and penny stocks. You might say, well, I don't have any money for that. Again, you'd be surprised what you can invest. And it's not going to be a situation where it's going to be like trading places where you make $1 million overnight, but it's a long game, not a short game. So again, being more educated in how to manage money. Number three is always, and I think one of the issues that we're dealing with is education. And not so much formal education in with youth. We know we need that. But if you're a young man who's not really college material, and that's okay. Everybody's not college material. Being able to have the opportunity to take a trade and have a vocation that you can run and use. And I challenge a lot of the brothers and sisters who have businesses to train that. We're finding many ways to use the internet unlike any other time. Even though we're products of the internet, with the internet is now becoming social media in this way, we've been doing this conversation via Zoom. It's become a plight and it's become a stronghold. So
Absolutely.
getting educated, finding a vocation, so you're not going job to job and you're making things happen. And then number 4, this maybe is a personal thing, but the concept of the Black family needs to come together. Again, things happen. Everybody doesn't always make it in family structure, but we need to have men training men. Now, again, I don't have any kids, but I used to coach youth football. And there's a lot of these young guys that have now become men that didn't have necessarily a dad at home. You don't have to be a biological father to be a father. But I do believe that there's a responsibility for Black men to help Black young men grow and Black young women grow. The same thing with women in the community. We used to have that. I had that growing up. A lot of times, bless my father's soul, he wasn't always around. And there was people who took on that responsibility to say, hey, you know what? Yeah, you're not my son, but you're a kid in the community, and they saw something. And I think, again, we need that again. We need Black men to do that. The hunt is on us. The hunt is on. So if Black men are not supporting younger Black men, then eventually, what happens to the endangered species?
Right.
It becomes extinct. So we have to do these things. And again, when we do these things in our communities and our communities become stronger, we then have the servant volume to go up and demand things and say, like, you're not going to come in here and attack us or, treat us like third world citizens or kill us. So it has to come from that. But obviously today, it's like, okay, we just got to make it stop raining. It's something that we're going through. And, obviously, George Floyd, Ahmaud Arbery, Tamika, all these things are happening right in front of us over a course of a month, and we got to stop the rain. So when you see these outcries, this is just people who are really hurting,
Right.
And again, I've heard from good friends throughout this week, and it's a blessing that people reach out to me to just ask me questions because they feel like, hey, Kev, I know you can give me something or help me with something or just somebody to talk to. And the outpour of emotion is incredible, and it's not just one thing. Some people are emotional about the murder, and we've seen that, and there's people like, how can people just let this man just go, throw a rock or, do something, blow a horn, how can you just sit there and record something? And there's other people who are talking about the property, like, yeah, I'm not, so people are not crying about the big corporations, but what about the pharmacy in the community where my mama needs to get her blood pressure medication?
Absolutely.
What about the situation with COVID where, I've been out of work and, now if they blow up the city even more or the cities in America, how can I go back to work? So it's a lot of things and a lot of anguish, but we have to try to come together and say, okay, we wanted to get our point across, and I think we've gotten that. So now where do we go from that here? How do we strategic and be strategized and come together and say, you know what, let's make this situation happen. And it's unfortunate, and we're in pain, and we're angry, and we're mad, and we have a lot of emotions, but no more. And that starts, to me, it starts with conversations like this.
Absolutely. It seems like a lot of people are not able to view this for some reason. I have a watch party. I have it live. I have it shared. And I'm getting all these random texts about how they're not able to see
it's
the footage.
I'm watching it on my Facebook.
Are you public though, or do you have a private account?
No, I'm public. I got people on there now.
Yeah, I don't know what to tell them anymore.
Can you share it?
I've shared it on my page. I have a watch party going on. I don't understand how people are not seeing
Yeah,
it.
I'm gonna make it a watch party too on mine.
Okay.
You know, so it's a watch party now on Kevin Pryor's Facebook page.
Yeah,
yeah.
I don't
know. Maybe, I can't call it. If I know you've been giving them yours, just give them mine. I mean, if they can't find it, and we're sharing the same link.
Yeah, I know.
If they get you, they get me. But I don't know. I can't call it. We certainly have people chiming in here.
Yeah, we do. We do. While we wait for the borough president, we have Jonathan on, and he says it seems like kids are being raised, how they're being raised these days, all the way up to the politicians and the people. A day that we taught the youth and lead by example. It seems like a couple of generations we're skipping. We're skipped, and parents try to be best friends with their children instead of being role models.
I mean, again, that has a lot to do with, if you really want to take that approach, it had a lot to do with the crack era. Babies were raising babies, and then grandma was raising everybody. Yeah. And that's still, again, that is part of when you take about like, aesthetic racism and poverty. That leads to that. That leads to the drug infested communities. That leads to lack of opportunity. That leads to lack of education. And that, again, we can go back again to the crack era, and those children in the 80s and now in their 30s, and they've had kids. And I beg to say there's some kids in their 30s that had, they've had kids have had kids.
Right.
So, again, this is part of where we have to cut it somewhere and start to grow, because, that's a chain that we're still fighting. I mean, we're still fighting 401 years of slavery, even in some of our actions. So to think that, we're not dealing with those situations from the crack era would be ridiculous to think that's not the case.
So we are getting a lot of feedback about how, this is going back to our technical issue right now.
But here comes Ruben.
They're saying that perfect. They're saying that the content is unavailable. So we have to figure that out after Ruben speaks. Ruben.
D-Essence.
This is Kevin Pryor of 950 Lounge Network. He's a very close friend.
Good afternoon, sir. Thank you so much for some of your time today.
How are you, brother? Everything good? How's your family? How's your family?
Family's doing good. Thank you for asking, and I hope all the same with you and yours.
My family's well. My borough's hurting.
Yes.
It's hurting on COVID. It's hurting on police misconduct. And it's been like this for quite some time. So I'm always happy when we get a chance to discuss it.
Without question.
I want to thank you so much for making out the time to be here with us and to be our first speaker. I think you know what we're here to speak about, and we just want to hear your words and what actions we can start putting in place and how we can all help as our community and other communities. I know you probably dealt with some of this in your personal life as well, being Latino and, a little darker than some of us, we just want to share some light with you, and thank you again for being with us and all that you're doing for us.
So let me just say to everybody who's watching or is going to be watching that I want to thank you for hosting this forum and this platform for us to talk about it. I am just upset about this as everyone. I wholeheartedly support all of the marches that are happening not only throughout the city and the state, but throughout the country. We could talk a little bit about, the faming and burning things down in a little bit. I think that when you look at what's happening here, this is a culmination of decades of a lot of things, right? It's not just George Floyd, and our thoughts and prayers go out to his family. And yes, we saw him being murdered. Let's call it for what it is. He was murdered before the eyes of the entire nation, clear as day. But I think even more than that is that people are sick and tired. Like I am, like you are. I know you were emotional about this a couple of days ago, D-Essence. I know that Brother Pryor is, and everybody who's gonna have on the show. But you got to understand, for those who can't comprehend why we're so angry. We're angry because we call it systemic change. We're angry because when we say that it's been happening for decades, in my political career and in my lifetime, not only did I have to deal with, being patted and frisked down in front of the building on 1150 St. Lawrence Avenue on the block where I grew up with all of the fellas, but then when I became, involved politically, let's go back to 1995. People don't know that 1995 was, for me, the first time that I got involved in protesting when two young men, Latino, Puerto Rican men in the West Bronx, one of them was Anthony Rosario, the other one was Hilton Vega. People already forgot these names. Hilton Vega and Anthony Rosario were shot at 28 times.
Yes.
They weren't running. They were in handcuffs in the house, and they were both shot multiple times in their back while they were handcuffed. We protested that. Prior to that, we also had Anthony Y.E.S. Does everybody remember Anthony Y.E.S? Who, what he was doing? What was his criminal act? He was playing football with his brothers in front of his mother's house in the West Bronx. And a police officer by the name of Francis Lavodi decided that because the football hit the car, that he was going to arrest his brother David. When Anthony kind of protested, didn't agree with his brother B, all he did was fold his arms. What did he do? He put Anthony Y.E.S in a chokehold. Fast forward, we have Abner Louima. Abner Louima happened in Brooklyn back in 1997. And, he wasn't just beat up by the then police officer Volpe. He was taken into a bathroom and a plunger. He was sodomized with a plunger, and then it was shoved in his mouth where he broke teeth. Then you go 1999, the one that I really got involved in because it was in my assembly district. When I was the assemblyman, Amadou Diallo shot at 41 times, hit with 19 of those bullets. They moved the venue. Talk about systemic racism. They painted this area of the Bronx as being the Wild Wild West, and that the 4 police officers would never get a fair trial. So they moved the venue up to Albany. We marched, we protested. We rallied up in Albany in front of the courthouse every single day, hoping to get justice. We didn't get justice. The 4 police officers got acquitted. When they got acquitted in 2000, D-Essence, there was a multiple rallies and protests on Watson Avenue, my hood here in Soundview. One gentleman was protesting. He got arrested, like we see a lot of people getting arrested now over this past week. His name was Malcolm Ferguson. 5 days after Malcolm Ferguson was arrested, guess what happened? Malcolm Ferguson was killed in his building and shot by police officers. So we protested then. And so the list goes on and on. Of course, we can go into, more recently, everything from Michael Brown to Trayvon Martin. Obviously, we know about, Ahmaud Arbery and the 2 white men that killed him over there in Glenville, in Glenn County. You have Breonna Taylor. Breonna Taylor is an essential worker. Breonna Taylor, here we are clapping 7 o'clock at night for EMS and EMT and nurses and doctors as our essential workers, our heroes. That's what she was. Absolutely. And yet they go to her house, and then not only do they kill her and it's the wrong house, but then they arrest her fiance who had a weapon to protect his loved ones. So this is a culmination. When we say systemic change, it's not just the police brutality, not just the fact that it happens only to Black and Latinos. And by the way, my fellow Latinos, when we say Black Lives Matter, we mean, that means you too. So don't try to front like we're not all in this together. I just mentioned Anthony Y.E.S. I just mentioned, Anthony Rosario. I just mentioned Hilton Vega and so many others that you don't read about in the papers in our communities. There was just a young Latina 2 days ago in the 46th precinct who was cracked in the head by a police officer. I sent that video to the chief of police of Bronx Police, and that police officer needs to be brought to justice. And then people say, well, why are you so angry? What about Black on Black crime, man? We don't want to hear that in there, to be above the law. And then it's not just policing. It's about systemic change. Why is it that our schools don't get the resources? I'm the borough president. I've been elected for more than half of my life. I've been fighting for over 2 decades to get funding into our schools. And yet that funding is still shorted. When you talk about banks, why is it that a Black woman or a Latino man, they find it much more harder for banks to be able to give them loans to open up a business or to be able to buy a condo or to be able to buy a home? What about, how we get approached in certain businesses and stores when we don't look the part. And so they follow us around the stores. You look at COVID and how it's killed so many in our communities. We talked about this already. But then, the health issues and the health disparities, that's something that we've been talking all about. So when all of this is on top of us, when all of this frustration, when we continue to march, when we continue to be peaceful, oh, why don't you guys do peaceful? I believe in peaceful marching, and I don't condone burning down things. And that's happening by outside agitators. By the way, every time we protested, every time we rallied around Diallo, around Y.E.S, with the mothers there, not one single bottle, not one single brick was thrown. We don't condone that. But the real violence, we also got to talk about. If you're going to talk about the violence that the protesters are doing, don't change the topic. Talk about the violence that these police officers did to George Floyd. Yeah. Talk about the violence that's happening in our communities. Talk about the injustices that happen in our communities. Talk about the fact that when we say justice, especially in this case where they murdered George Floyd, when we say justice, what we mean is that not only should that police officer, the knee on his neck, should be indicted, he should be convicted, but also the 4 police officers. And then lastly, because I'm already riled up before you ask me questions. Lastly, I think that when people say, oh, well, what can we do to bring down the temperature? The first thing that can happen, and we saw some of this last night, I was happy to see it with police officers when they take the knee. Kaepernick tried the nonviolent way, right? Right. Kaepernick was trying to wake the country up and say, we have a problem. And what did they do? They changed the topic. They said he was against the national anthem, that he was against the American flag, that he was anti-American. No, he wasn't. He did it the nonviolent way. America, you didn't listen. You didn't listen. And so one of the things that can happen now and should be happening now, if nothing else, it should be so easy for the commanding officers or commissioners all throughout the country to get together and say, what happened to George Floyd was bad. It was wrong. It shouldn't have happened. We don't condone it. We think that the cop who did it should not only be fired, but he should pay the price. See, the thing is that when police officers know that it's wrong, but they still don't say anything, then that's the reason why we look at them sideways. Right. But this one could be an easy one for all of them. I think that we can all agree on that. I mean, it's easy for us because we've been out there in other ones, but for any police officer or police commissioner who's had trepidations, who wants to stay quiet, who wants to toe the company line, who has a perfunctory, departmentalized response to issues and incidents like this is an easy one. You should say that it's wrong. You should say that they got to pay the price. And when protesters are saying, coming into your face, all you got to do is say, hey, brother and sister, I understand your pain. It was wrong what happened over there. Go ahead. Let your voice be heard. Do you? I'm just doing my job. But if you have police officers who are out there cracking heads, then that's where we continue to have a problem. That means that we're not being listened to again.
Right. We're talking again to Bronx Borough President, Mr. Ruben Diaz. And, again, like you just said so poetically, Mr. Borough President, we totally agree. And I'm a son of the Bronx too. So I feel your pain and I know the essence, about her Bronx ties, but everything you said, it just made me go down memory lane. And even today, prepping for this, my thoughts and just from even beyond that, talking to people I know about the Harlem, how the Harlem riots and, things that happen in the Watts and in California, just all these things and all these names. But there are people that have been reaching out to me throughout the weekend and they say like, you know what, Kevin, I'm a man of a certain age and you know what, I don't believe in anything. I don't believe that this is all one big plot. When you think about COVID and how it's affected our neighborhoods, and when you think about police brutality, which is now front and center, you think about education and you think about all these things that happen politically, and we see what's happening at 1600 Pennsylvania, all these things, people are just at this point, they're so like, I'm tired, I'm exhausted, and I think that's where we're seeing the outlash because we've experienced this. Like I said, we didn't even get a chance to really mourn Ahmaud Arbery. I ran 2.2 miles a few weeks ago, and then here come this. So for a person, again, a native son of the Bronx, who, the love I have for you as a public official is that you a guy that can go on stage with Fat Joe, but yet can have a conversation with Mayor de Blasio. For people who are saying, I'm done, I don't have any more hope. And when people are lack of hope, that becomes where it's like when there's no way out and I just gotta survive. That's where it becomes dangerous. For those people who are listening and who will listen to this, what can you say? Somebody who knows both roads and have communication on both sides.
I would say be tired, be frustrated, be upset, feel the pain, cry, scream, be angry, but you can't give up.
Yeah.
You can't give up because what if Martin Luther King said, oh, with all of these threats to my daughters, and what if Malcolm said, oh, because they burned down my house.
Right.
What if Rosa Parks would have said, oh, I'm gonna just go to the back of the bus.
Right.
And so if we give up now, and by the way, no one said it was going to be easy, right? The universe, the arc of the universe bends towards justice.
Yes.
But it's a long arc, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what I would say is you can't give up now, because if you give up, or if you succumb to, changing the topic by burning down police cars, right? If you burn down police cars, then that's the leading story, not George Floyd. If you loot and rob, and by the way, it's not our communities that are doing that. Those are interlopers. Those are people from other areas.
Yeah.
Right.
But once you allow that to happen, then you're allowing for people to change the topic. And if you do give up, then you know what? Then people of all the names and all the other names that I didn't mention, then they all died in vain. When we marched peacefully multiple times with Al Sharpton and National Action Network, on Wall Street, we marched down Park Avenue when it came to stop and frisk. You remember the unit that approached Amadou Diallo was called then the Street Crimes Unit.
Right.
And their motto was, we own the night. And we said, no, whose streets? Our streets, not your streets. So what happened? Out of those marches, what we were able to do is have the NYPD disband the Street Crimes Unit. Right. Then when I was a young assembly member of state, and we had something called a Diallo package, which was, over a dozen bills that dealt with police misconduct, police brutality, police community relations. So out of that, do you recall that when we were protesting initially, then Mayor Giuliani and Police Commissioner Howard Safer, they said we were overreacting, that we were creating a clown-like atmosphere, that we were clowns. And what was the best solution that they had? Well, because the bullets pierced through the walls when they were shooting at Diallo, right. What we're gonna implement hollow point bullets. We said, no, wait, we banned those. We did away with so many different things. Is life perfect? No, but we've been able to move the needle forward. Right. And when you look at now how diverse the protesters are, when you look at how diverse they are in ethnicity, in race, in ages, in geography, all over, like this is not the time to give up. This is now the time to feel more impassioned, more purposeful. This is where, we can really turn things forward, hold people accountable, and really make a change so that all of these individuals did not die in vain.
Amen.
Absolutely. So we have any plans of action in the works that you've been thinking about, or any ideas where we can start taking charge? Besides, you just say the police department, which is amazing. I believe in that too. I'm all for it.
No doubt.
So the police department has to, at least admit, in my opinion, it will go a long way. And by the way, I'm a brother of a retired police sergeant. My sister's a retired police sergeant.
Right.
And I'm also, and as a young assembly member, I remember being with and it was on the, you guys could look this up on New York One. Back then, I was in the car with my cousin, and my car had assembly plates. But guess what? I was in my hoodie and some Timbs, the way you guys see me sometimes. And they pulled us over, and it was like they couldn't believe that two young men that looked like this one of them could actually be the assembly member. So we must have stolen the car. Right?
Yeah.
So and not only did I do that at teenage, but I suffered, profiling even as an assembly member.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So what do we need to do? We need to obviously pass legislation. The federal government, I know Hakeem Jeffries, my boy, my friend, is introduced legislation to ban all chokeholds nationwide. We need to make sure that we have better training for police officers. We need to have a conversation I think that police officers who do this, they're trained to think of a certain look. If somebody looks a certain way, you know, the kid who went on the crime spree in Connecticut that he killed his roommate, and then he went to Jersey, and then Pennsylvania. Yeah. When they caught him, they arrested that kid. They gave him water. I think they even gave him a piece of steak. Yep. You know, it's just when we were talking about
in South Carolina, went into a church and murdered people, and you know, again, they gave him, you know, and I think that's where it's at. You know,
the mentality, right? Yes. So even with COVID, right? Even with COVID, and by the way, it's unfortunate that we stopped talking about COVID, right? On all of this, but this is important to talk about. Even with COVID, when you had the social distancing, we saw how that was enforced, and we told the mayor, the borough president, to all of us, from the 5 boroughs, how it was enforced differently in parts of the city than in other parts. You know, you can't have a health initiative called social distancing and have it so that, you know, you're supposed to start it by the police saying, could you please wear your mask? Could you please stay 6 feet apart? Could you please not? To the point where they're cracking our heads open. Yeah. What kind of health policy is that?
Yeah.
So when we talk about mentality and you know, you can pass legislation, but you can't legislate hate.
Right.
You could only legislate the enforcement when somebody commits an act of hate. Right. Hate is taught. Hate is in the heart. So for me, you know, obviously coming together, having a conversation, letting people know, not only the police department, but people who are just scared of us. You know, there's a lot of folks who say that they understand us. There are a lot of folks who say, we may not know specifically what Black and brown communities are going through but we know that systemic racism exists.
Right.
And they say they want to change it, but then the question becomes, would you send your kids to a school that's predominantly Black or Latino?
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And more times than not, they won't admit it publicly, but they won't. Why? Because something is embedded in the minds and the hearts of people about who we are and how they should distance themselves from us. Right. So one of the things that I see at these rallies, when I see these young kids who are not Black and not Latino, who are out there, I'm hopeful that this is the next generation of non-minorities or non-Latinos or Blacks.
You got to plant a seed somewhere. So why not?
Who will teach their kids, who will teach their kids better.
Right.
So that if and when their kids become the professionals, the bankers, the teachers, or whatever, that they approach Black and brown children in the future differently than their parents and their grandparents have treated Black and Latinos. So, I mean, ultimately it's about having conversations. Ultimately is about bringing down the barriers and show folks, just because I have my hair, you know, in dreads or in braids, or because I wear my pants a certain way, or because I have a baseball cap or a do-rag, or I'm balding or whatever, or because I'm loud, because I clap my hands, but, you know, because I speak a certain way, that doesn't make me a bad person.
Right.
Right. So these are the things that we have to do collectively. So I'm optimistic that when I see the diversity that's going on all over in terms of these protests, that yes, we're dealing with justice for Floyd now.
Yeah.
But in the future, hopefully this will be the new generation of unity, of people coming together.
This is, again, I mean, we're talking to Ruben Diaz, Bronx Borough President, Diaz since 950 Lounge, GetInLine Town Hall. My thing has always been this, and we talked about this earlier before you came on. I know police do sensitivity training, or they, you know, again, they even have a whole new advertising campaign they brought a couple years ago about being more sensitive. But years ago, growing up in the Bronx, you would have the local cop, right? Local cop would walk with a blue shirt, he have a badge, a hat. He eat an apple off the fruit stand, and everybody knew him. Somewhere along the line, the police became more militant. The clothing, the Glocks, the guns, the suspension pants. It became more militant. And you know, and I don't know this, and I'm going to ask you, Mr. Diaz, would it make sense for NYPD or most major metropolis police departments to have zoning laws for their officers? If they're going to ask Congress people to live in a certain community and know that community and represent that community, shouldn't that be the same for our officers?
You mean like residency requirement?
Somewhere you. So this way, right. So this way, when you live in Stamford, like Greenwich, Connecticut, and you come down here, and the only image you have is when you see that kid on TV with the baggy pants or the rapper, that talks in a certain language, and you perceive that you've had this perception in your head that this is how I gotta go because this is what I'm thinking, I'm viewing, instead of having that where you live here, you know our tones, you know how we dress, you know everybody's not a criminal because they wear a hoodie. Wouldn't that help? Your thoughts?
Conventional wisdom would tell you that it should. But let me just say a couple of things here that are facts. And I'm not anti, police. I know some people are and everything. What I am is pro-justice.
Yes.
I want unity. I want peace. I want to be able to have all of us resolve this moving forward.
Yes.
But when you study the history of the institution of the NYPD and other law enforcement institutions throughout the country, racism has always been there.
Right.
Whether the police officers was walking down the street and grabbing an apple, like you said, off the tree or not, that didn't mean that police officer wasn't policing Black and brown people differently. Yeah. That's number one. Yeah. Number two, when you speak of residency requirement or even diversity, so in the NYPD, more of that has transpired. There have been more women, there have been more Latinos, more Black, more Asians in the NYPD than ever before, right? But what happens is something occurs even when they come from our neighborhoods. Maybe they don't live here anymore, but I know a lot of police officers who are like, yeah, Mr. Borough President, I'm from, the west side of the Bronx, so I'm from Throsnick, wherever they're from, right? But maybe now that they have their jobs, they live in Orange County or they live, in Long Island or something, but they're from the community, they still have family in the community.
Right.
But how many images have we seen where a lot of the police officers who are abusing their authority are also Black and Latinos? So again, it's a certain mentality about how you approach some communities versus others. How in some communities, if they're pushing and shoving a police officer, the police officers want to calm the situation down. In other communities, they start banging heads. And that's all a mindset. And by the way, I'll challenge us, even Black and Latinos. So like, not that she's like this, but let's just say my mom. If my mom got into an elevator at 12 o'clock at night with 4 white men, would she feel much more comfortable than if it was 4 Black men or 4 Latino men in the elevator? So sometimes we front like we don't have that mindset, right?
Exactly. Yes.
So let's be honest. If we can have we gotta have honest conversation here.
Yeah.
We all have aunts and uncles and nanas and grandmas and everything. If the person in your family is walking down a particular street in the Bronx, they're all by themselves and they see 4 white men coming in the opposite direction, will they clutch their purse? Will they cross the street? But would they do that if they see, 4, Black or Latino minority men with hoodies? So we also got to start talking about how sometimes, everybody comes out when there's an unjust killing of an innocent man by police. Right. But on a daily basis, are we practicing what we preach?
Exactly. And that's what we're trying to do.
So just to get to his, to answer Brother Pryor's question, we could do residency requirement. Right. Yes, we can, have a more diversified police force, but what we need to do more than anything else is change the psychology, the mentality of how people across the board view, especially young Black and Latino men in this country.
Is there anything you would like to share about the Bronx and how we're dealing with everything? Because I know we started our protest.
So with the protest, there was a protest that happened in every borough on Saturday. There was ours was the ones that I wasn't there, but they did one at the hub, and that was peaceful, no incident. They continue to make their point. I'm concerned about how there was something out there that there was like an email that said we're going to be in Bay Plaza, and let's go riot and let's go loot. Yep. Don't fall for that. The people, I've even seen postings where there were bricks that were strategically placed near stores and department stores where there wasn't even construction going on. Don't feed into that. Those are outside agitators. Those are people. I mean, one of the ladies that was caught burning a van, she was from the Catskills, right? So, let's not burn down our community. let's not take away from the real issue at hand. Let's not give anybody the right to call us names, to dilute the message, and let's not dishonor the names and now legacy of those individuals that we're out there championing justice for. Go out there, protest.
Yeah.
Go out there and I'll tell you, I'll be the first to support any protest and every night. I've been to many of them in my life. Yeah. Go out there and yell. Go out there and scream. Go out there and chant. Bring out your signs, and you're right to do that. But don't go out there and dilute the message. And then lastly, I just have to say this, and I know a lot of folks don't want to hear this, but now that we're all part of this movement, go to the voting booths, go to the ballot box. The ballot box is where we can make a change. I mean, are we really going to let this guy sit in 1600 Pennsylvania for another 4 years?
Right.
You got to be kidding me. So stay strong, stay focused, stay loud, stay angry, and ultimately, I know that justice will prevail.
Well, Mr.
Thank you so much for your words.
I can't thank you enough. Again, being, like I said, born and raised and watching you work and tireless effort you do right here. I don't live too far from Jacoby. I salute you and I thank you for that. And like I said, again, continue blessings and success to you and yours.
Thank you. And let me just say this last thing again. If you're Latino, remember that if you dance to salsa, merengue, bachata, bomba, la plena, you do so with African instruments.
Right.
We're all in this together.
That's right.
All of us.
And we share the same barber, so you
I don't know anymore, but
yeah, me neither.
God bless you guys.
Thank you, Ruben.
A good show here, and Bronx BX, stand up.
No doubt.
All the time. All right. We are on a curfew, correct?
Yeah, we I don't know if it's a good idea. The governor and the mayor announced it today. What happens, I mean, I know that only essential workers are supposed to be the ones working, but, I hope that an essential worker is not going to be now harassed by police if they're out there past 11. Obviously, they talked about homeless people being protected here. I know that, people will get angry, but, things have gone really bad when you look at the looting, when you look at the fires that are happening and everything. So, try to do the best you can to go out there, chant and make your point. And then, there is a curfew. Okay. And if you are an organizer, Black Lives Matter, whatever organization, let those people who are from the outside, who are not from here, let them know that if they want to burn something down, if they want to break something, that this is not for them. That you're here to make a point about getting justice for not only Floyd, but Ahmaud Arbery, for Breonna Taylor, and for all of the people who on a daily basis feel like they've been wronged and harassed and brutalized by police. If you're a police officer, talk about it. Stand up now. Take a knee during these press. Hug somebody. Let them know that you understand where they're coming from. Don't trivialize the anger. Don't trivialize the pain. This is now the time that you can show that leadership, whether you're the police commissioner or you're an officer who's been on the force for 6 months. Now is the time to show that leadership.
Well said, sir. Thank you again. It's been
we love you.
Thank you.
Blessings. Thank you, Ruben.
Again, that's Ruben Diaz.
That was heavy.
Powerful jewels. Everything is loose in the essence. Hopefully you got the text. I think we have Miss Anna and next.
Yes. Hi, Anna. Can you change your picture now?
Okay, you tell me what you need. Let's go this way.
Much better.
Okay.
And Kevin, we look like we're still just with friends on the chat. It is not public.
It's public. You didn't get it?
I'm looking at it and it's not public.
As Kevin
figures out his technical issue over here, because we're trying to let everyone see this, and everybody's hitting me up like, I can't see it. I can't see it.
Yes, I think there was an issue with the Facebook. Only if you were invited, you could get in. So I had people hitting me up too. And I'm like, I don't know what's going on, but
we're trying to get it fixed, but also trying to conduct this. But again, whoever cannot see this, we will have it on our live. We will have it on YouTube, and then we're gonna be cleaning it up a little bit, and then putting it on the airwaves and BronxNet and all of that. So
absolutely,
this is not the only time. First of all, I want to introduce you. Is it Nyakana?
Okay, so like close. So Anna Nyakana.
Nyakana. Okay.
Yes.
I want to first of all thank you and welcome you to this chat. You are absolutely beautiful. Your soul is so peaceful.
Oh, thank you, Queen.
For me in the last 4 days. You have really been there for me through your words and just your voice alone.
Thank you. We're connected.
We are connected.
When souls meet and they connect, we're connected. Oh, thank you. I appreciate your encouragement, sis. I really do. You're such a beautiful woman, and I am so encouraged by you and all that you do, and so impressed by how quickly you were able to pull this together to create a space and a way for people to really unify and share all our voices together.
Absolutely. So real quick, I would like you to introduce yourself to our viewers and listeners, and then we'll talk about your sector of where you think that the change needs to start, and any like action or plan that you've been kind of thinking about.
Okay, absolutely. So quick intro. My name is Anna Nyakana. I'm a children's book author of the Nyazuri book series. First book, Nyazuri and the Pharaoh's Throne. I'll just throw it in the window here, which focuses on representation in books, cultural and racial representation, and also gender representation. I have a fearless heroine that is leading the pact and definitely focusing on girl empowerment and not having girls just be in the shadows. It was a book that was inspired because growing up, I could never find anyone on the cover that looked anything like me. It was very discouraging. I came to this country from Germany, didn't speak any English, and my parents didn't have any money to buy me books, especially books that I could actually connect with. So all I depended on were the books in my library in my school. And I could never find anyone on the cover that looked like me. And it was something that always stuck with me for life. And as I grew older, I said, I have this crazy idea. I want to write a story and fix that wrong. Have something that children can connect with, learn about other cultures, world cultures. And in my book, Nyazuri and her best friends, Miguel and Hugo Gonzalez, they actually time travel. So there's science, there's history, and there's a full glossary in the book and all of the books that are coming up in the series, because I wanted to also be an educational resource. Because at the end of the day, it's not about selling 2 million books on, my website or Amazon. It's about actually getting the books into the curriculum. And that's been a big cross for me. I'm in the state of Connecticut, and I've gotten my book into maybe 10 districts now, 10 different districts in the curriculum, and it's not an easy feat. It's a lot of meetings, a lot of discussions, a lot of redlining of actually tailoring a curriculum to a school that meets their needs and and their standards, but also contributing and making that contribution so children can learn about cultures that are different than their own. I've been to schools where it's all one race, and I've been to schools where it's a mixed race. So every time there's always opportunities for them to understand and embrace cultures that are different from their own. So what a beautiful way right there.
Absolutely. Kevin, would you like to add anything?
Well, as I'm I'm showing I'm public again, but I definitely want to go there. I appreciate your time. In a short period, this is prep, and I got to do some quick research on you. And I think it's important as we deal with profiling and police brutality, that it all stems from, again, sometimes the image that we perceive with ourselves and then what people perceive of us. And you just mentioned you came from Germany, obviously with an African hue. Talk about that when you came here, again, coming from another country, and coming to America and having to deal with the fact of not just learning a language, but being of African descent.
Exactly. Thank you for that. So my father is from Uganda, which is in East Africa, and my mother is from a small country in Eastern Europe called Moldova, and she's also half German. So I grew up in a very multicultural family, but culture is something that's celebrated outside of the United States, ethnicity and culture. And when I came to the US, it was a very hard realization, not just for myself, but my brothers, my parents, that everything is very black and white here. It's one or the other. And I grew up in the 90s in Stamford, Connecticut, and it's one or the other. I grew up in the projects. We didn't have any resources. And, you know, coming here, not learning the language and trying to figure out my place in the world. You know, I wasn't quite white enough for the white girls, wasn't quite black enough for the black girls. I was something in between. You know, everybody's into labels. So you're trying to figure out all these things, and it's very confusing for a child. You know, it took me a while to gain my confidence and really become that fearless heroine that I always wanted to be, and which is why I made my character that way. And it's something that you realize really quickly that one, you have to know that, or at least I had to realize I'm a woman of color. And that's something that I embraced. And I took the power that I got from that and put it into the messages of my book. Because at the end of the day, a child is brought into this world and it is innocent, right? A child does not have any sort of prejudices. They don't have any prejudgments on people. If you look at a daycare, for instance, you have toddlers, you have babies, you have preschoolers that are all playing together. They don't hate each other. They don't have any malice in their heart. You know, those are things that are taught, unfortunately, from their families or from their communities or from exposure to the wrong things, right? And then right around that elementary school age range is when the cliques start to form and the prejudgments start to form. And that's why I wanted to write a book that was targeted in that elementary school range, because I have a voice. You know, we all have a voice. And this is how I can make my contribution to expose children, once again, to cultures that are different from their own. In the first book, they go to ancient Egypt. The next book, they're going to ancient Mayan, and so on and so forth. And also, none of the characters look the same on the cover, because that is the real world. And we shouldn't be in this bubble, because that's not realistic. And the classroom is really where a lot of kids get their first exposure to children that are different from themselves.
Without question, a day of social media where, you know, we're having kids and people in general shy away from books. It's important that we read, because I know growing up for me, and I'm from the Bronx, New York, and you know, growing up, my mother made me read one book a month, and it was different things.
Amazing.
Because again, it was about growing, not just growing your vocabulary, that's important, but growing your mind. Because again, sometimes when you're in a situation where you feel like, and you know, and what a lot of people are experiencing now, and the pain they're feeling, and they're in a box, and no matter what I do or where I go or what I say, I'm always going to be perceived as this. But sometimes reading can grow your horizons, where it can make you believe and make you can reach out for something greater, you know, and that's why I'm so excited to have you on this thing, because again, I think it starts with those seeds. You know, we have seeds, and I know we're all people of a certain age. I won't ask you age, but from a standpoint, it's about starting seeds. And I think, again, having a conversation and bringing your stories to light will help the kids, especially with kids being out of school now. These kids are on the computer, and they don't have the interaction. So you got to take your mind to a faraway place.
Exactly. And now is really, now is the time. You know, I want to encourage parents. I want to encourage educators. So as I was thinking, okay, well, what is it that I'm going to speak about today? What is it that, how can I lend my voice? And one, I just want to encourage everyone and remind them that you have a voice. No one can take your voice. Only you, if you don't use it. Right. Okay. So how are you going to use it? Okay. I'm a children's book author. What can I do? What can I say? I can encourage parents. I can encourage educators, because at the end of the day, aside from the work that parents are doing, right? Like your amazing mother made you read a book every day. You learned all sorts of things, right? Socially and everything else, geographically. But educators actually, outside of this time period, you know, with quarantine, they spend more time with our kids than we do. Okay. So they have a very heavy responsibility, and they're already underpaid and overstressed, right? So this is one more thing on top of their heads. But we really are relying on our educators, because that classroom setting, number one, it should be a safe space, right? That's where they're going to get the exposure. That's where they're going to get the knowledge. And that's where we can make a difference. If, let's say, the curriculum is kind of, you know, standard, and it's been that way for 20 years, hey, have that conversation with your administrators. How can we bring more diversity to the classroom? Whether it's the books that we're reading, maybe the holidays that we're celebrating, really shaking things up. So it's not just the standard everyday thing that's been going on for 20, 30 years. We have to make some change here. We have to make some change. And parents, I want to encourage you, because, you know, it really, everything relies on us as well, because we are the child's first educator. They learned everything from us. And you know that children learn from parents really more from what they see and what they hear than from what we really tell them. It kind of goes in one ear and goes out the other, right?
Yep.
So you can tell them 5 times, sit down. They're not listening to us.
It's the action.
Yeah, absolutely. It's what they see and what they hear. So continue to be those amazing role models and continue to praise them when you see the good behavior, when you see the respect, the empathy, not just the disciplining for, oh no, don't treat that child that way or treat that child that way. No, praise the empathy, praise the respect. And also during this time, you can do one-on-one reading. Books are amazing because it really, you can highlight so many different things, and you can start a book club. Right? You can start a parent group, a mom group, whatever the case is, and you can do it all virtual, Zoom, Facebook, exactly. Instagram Live. We're really not limited right now. People are more creative now more than ever, and finding ways to reconnect, because it really isn't social distancing. It's just physical distancing.
Yeah.
Right.
So we can continue the work. So parents, educators, continue the work. We need to unify more now than ever. Use our voices, and all my fellow authors that are creating diverse books, keep going. We need to continue to highlight our stories and our voices because they matter. All of our voices matter. And we really need understanding and love right now.
Absolutely. How are you feeling? How are you doing with all this, being a female and living in society?
Oh, thank you for asking. Yes, it's definitely a roller coaster. I'm also a mother of 2 young boys, and, I'm raising 2 Black men, and it's something that's fearful in me. It doesn't matter what hue you are, that's a whole different conversation that we could have. Black is Black and white is white, or different and white. It's 2 different things, right? So it's a fear that I have of what is this world going to look like, 15, 30 years from now. Is it going to continue to be this place? But I always try to hold on to the positive things in life, and instead of allowing fear to consume me, because I really can't turn on the TV. I can hardly go on social media because I'm so heartbroken. I'm really so heartbroken. I'm heartbroken for the mothers that are burying their children. It's just, it's a lot. It's a heavy weight to bear. Yeah. And instead, I'm trying to harness all of that pain into fuel and really ignite that flame, not only in myself, but also my circle, anybody else that I come into contact with, to use their voice and create a positive change. Just this discussion alone is positive change. We don't know how many people will be inspired by all the amazing individuals that you have coming on here, whether it's one word or the entire segment that's going to really give them some encouragement that their voices matter and they can do something. So I'm going to continue my work. And I just encourage everyone else to continue putting their actions and their work into place, because we got to make this world better. We've got to make it better than when we came. We have to leave it better than when we first came into it.
Absolutely. At this point, we can have all these discussions, but it's more about action and what we're going to do after this.
Absolutely. And I'm sure they want us to just be in rage. And that's great, because rage and chaos causes confusion. That's actually the opposite of unification. Yeah. So having healthy intellectual conversations where we can get plans of actions and equip people with with tools and tips on what they can do. Because maybe they feel, well, I'm not a politician, so I can't do anything. Everyone matters. Parent, neighbor, mailman, everyone matters in the society. And honestly,
village to raise a child. I think we somewhere lost that group, that team effort. And I think again, obviously growing up, and I'm sure with all of us, we knew our neighbors, and now we just go close our door. And even with COVID, the fear of COVID has almost paranoid us to even have a conversation. You gotta be 6 feet, wear a mask. There's so many things that kind of break down the human fabric. But Anna, I want to ask you a question. You mentioned you're raising 2 young kings, and with COVID and with issues of police brutality. I know I did an interview with Y.E.S the other day, and I talked about how my father at 7 years old took me to a kid that was still believing in the Tooth Fairy and Santa Claus, took me and said, listen, everything is not sweet. And unfortunately, while yes, maybe some might question the fact that at that age, are you ready? But in his mind, because of what he went through as an African-American male, that I need to prepare my young men, me and my brother. How are you addressing your kids? I know you said, the social media, and I'm sure that's even blocking them. If your mom is being blocked, I know the kids are being blocked. Yeah. But when they ask you questions and they go, Mom, this invisible monster is killing people, and and you can't but see the marches and the pain that people are showing us right live on television. What do you tell young men that you're raising, to keep them still in the age of innocence?
And also, I would like to add, how old are your sons, and how are they reacting to this at home? Are they crying? Are they upset? Are they kind of like not really knowing what's going on, and they're just being kids? Like, how are they
They're
reacting
actually
at home
quite
with
young.
people?
They're actually quite young. I have toddlers, so 2 and 4.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I have toddlers, 2 and 4.
So they're still living their innocence, and
So that's a blessing.
To an extent. To
Yeah.
an extent, I will say this, that my 4-year-old is actually already, even in preschool, is already experiencing racism, because he's the only Black child in the class. He's always the one that's pushed to the side. No one really wants to play with him, and he psychologically, he doesn't understand, well, why are they running away from me? I thought they were chasing me and playing. No, they literally are running away from you because they just want to stick to their own, right? So that's heartbreaking as a mother. And I try to instill, actually, let me take that word. I've been working on removing the word trying from my vocabulary. So I've been working on instilling and raising him up, letting him embrace and really creating self-love, having him find power in his skin color, in his heritage, in his knowledge. He's extremely smart. So he reads the Nyakana series too, but really having that connection to his ancestors and to his people and to his family, that's what gives him that strength. That's what makes him a leader and what's going to continue to make him a leader. But I will say this to all of my fellow parents who do have older children, especially our young Black boys, not taking away anything for our young Black girls. That's another conversation as well. But really all of our young Black boys, having to have those hard conversations with them on, be careful who you're with. Where are you driving? Make sure you always have your seatbelt on. If you get pulled over, keep your hands on the wheel. Already have your license in your hand. Do not reach for anything. If you're walking and you get pulled over, stop. Don't be confrontational. Try to de-escalate the situation. You really have to swallow your pride to make sure that nothing accidentally gets gets heightened and a tragedy occurs. So
because we have to start thinking about our families. When you get that rage, you have to think about other people and not just your ego and your pride and the principle of things.
Exactly. But what tough conversations we have to have. I swear we didn't have to have these 20 years ago, right? I'm in my mid-30s. So my parents never had these conversations with my brothers or I. It's almost as if it's just become worse. And I feel that we've been naive thinking that racism is slowly going away, but really it's being more exposed now more than ever because of technology. It's hard to hide it. You can't hide it. Everyone has a phone. Everyone can quickly upload something.
You hit it round the head. The greatest invention ever made, and it's the cell phone with a camera. Because the cell phone and camera took the news from being on CNN, MSNBC, or Fox and made it on Twitter. And it's to the point now where we are the news broadcasters. I do a program, and I had a gentleman on the show this past weekend that's on the front line in Minnesota. I don't know if you realize what there was a situation in Minnesota yesterday where a tanker truck drove down an open road and almost plowed over a bunch of people.
I saw that.
He was hosting that peaceful march. So again, the things that you necessarily won't get in the media, you're getting on Twitter. And while yes, it's like fire. You got to have fire to keep you warm and cook your meals, but it also can burn you and can kill you. Same thing with social media. Like, we need this information to keep us going, but sometimes when we hear like the nasty comments on Twitter or people who hide behind 40 characters and say these things are hurtful. And I think we have to try to balance. And I think part of this conversation that Y.E.S put together, and phenomenal job from her, and bringing you on, Anna, and your energy protrudes right through this computer screen. I want to say that the only way that separates us from animals in the jungle is the ability to communicate. The ability of communication. And if I'm annoyed or I'm angry, I feel hopeless, what way can I get out at but communication? If I keep that box, that parallel in my own eyes,
tunnel vision,
then I become like the king of the jungle animal, and just I'm going at it. But communication and talk and hope, and that can bring us down. That separates us from anybody. So what you're saying is so many great jewels that was really effective this evening.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And once again, thank you both for creating a space, a safe space for us to be able to express ourselves and really unify people. Because if we didn't have you all to spotlight this and pull this together, we'd just be having a lot of individual conversations, which is good. But when you take those individual conversations and you pull them together, you have one loud, resounding voice. And my wish through all of this pain and this tragedy right now is that we create the loudest resounding voice that is going to make such a huge impact and a positive impact that there is going to be no turning away, because you will hear it. You will hear it every time you open your window, every time you go to work. If you're an essential worker, we thank you. Every time you are trying to go on social media, every time you're trying to read something, you will see or hear that resounding voice. So let's continue the work.
Yes. And I trust you. And I just want to, I don't know, I want to hold you accountable to spread this knowledge to schools, speak out to teachers.
Thank you. Hold me accountable. Thank you.
I do, because you have the power to walk into a school, I believe, and we can talk to teachers. Like, I wanted to ask you really quick if you ever addressed anything with any of the teachers or the children when your child was getting, separated from the other children. Like, what can parents, maybe 1 or 2 words, what can parents do? Can we step into the school system and form a committee or some type of...
Absolutely.
I don't know.
Form a committee. You can get involved in the PTO. And in the older schools, PTOs have a lot of the power, right? Because that's the parent teacher organizations, like an alliance. You can go to the PTO meetings. You can express. If, once again, use your voice. If you stay quiet, nothing is going to happen. Right. And if you just speak with the teachers or just speak with your fellow parents, once again, it's just one-sided. Let's not have that tunnel vision like was just mentioned, right? Let's unify. Let's bring everything and expose it all together. But you have to advocate for your child. Otherwise, you don't know what that's going to do to them. Psychologically, how that's going to brainwash them. It could depress them. It could lead them down the wrong paths, drugs, alcohol, just bad behavior, falling in grades because they don't feel like they matter, that they're not worth it.
That's
and if the
called
parent
mental illness.
So the parent and the teacher are not speaking up and not going hard for the kids, they're going to feel worthless. So let's go hard for the kids. They need us. They need us to advocate for them.
Let our viewers and listeners know where they can find you. Kevin, do you want to add anything?
No, you took the words out of my mouth. That's why, because we want Anna to make some money. Those books.
You guys, I love you. I love you. And it's funny because I'm so drained today. I actually kicked off my first virtual summer camp. I had this crazy idea a couple months ago when quarantine started, and I was missing being in the classrooms and being with the kids. I'm like, I'm about to start an online summer camp. Let me see if some people will sign up for it. It's a crazy idea, but I'm like, I'm going to put it out there. And I ended up selling out. And today was an amazing first day. And it was just great to
advertise and help. Let me know. Shameless plug. But
okay. So shameless plug. You can find me on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter at Naya Zuri, NIYAHZURI, Naya Zuri. You can buy my book everywhere on my website, www.ananyakana.com. First book is Naya Zuri and the Pharaoh's Throne. The second book is on the way. I'm more than halfway done. It's called Naya Zuri and the Mayan Eclipse. So we're going to keep the adventures going. We're going to keep exposing children to world cultures through adventure, keep highlighting representation, keep highlighting girl empowerment, and keep highlighting diversity, because we need it now more than ever. We have to expose our children and do it before that seed of ignorance is planted.
Well said, Anna. And real quick, when your new book comes out, in the current book, and I can get you info. I think we followed you now on Instagram. We're definitely going to use that to promote out to my audience as well, because like I said,
thank you.
We don't support one another. What good are we? And these are positive images.
I appreciate that.
So salute to you and continue blessings and success.
Thank you. I know what, I will throw out a quick exclusive. I'm actually dropping the second edition of this book because it's been out for a few years. So I completely reformatted it. Second edition and ebook is dropping June 13th. So just look out for that. I'm trying to put it out for free. That way everybody can just get it. Because like I said, my parents didn't have any money to buy me a book. None. So I want parents to not feel like they don't have any, or a friend or a neighbor to feel like they have no way to get a book to a child.
Absolutely. And we'll talk behind the scenes. We'll talk behind.
We will.
Yes.
I love you.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you for all the work you guys are doing. Stay strong, stay safe, and continue to use your voice. Thank you.
Blessings.
Peace and light.
She's just Absolutely wonderful and beautiful, isn't she?
It protrudes right through the screen. Now I don't know why we're doing this. We're live, so we're gonna keep chatting.
Yeah.
Randall, Toby, or Neil Francis, one of those ring a bell?
Randall Toby is our next guest. He is the founder of Breakfast with Our Boys. He talks to us and motivates our youth, our men, how to act in the street, how to act in a restaurant, to have no limitations. He deals with men that have been in jail and coming out trying to find a job. He teaches them how to dress. He has a book, Dress for Success. We interviewed with the Y.E.S show on IG Live last week. He is simply amazing. He wants to bring the movement to the Bronx to empower our youth of brown and black boys. And yeah, hopefully he can come on as of now. There are still people saying that the video has not been able to be seen. So I don't know.
Yes, and
but,
hold on a second. While we got a second, you took my thing as well. So I have it, and I hold it in my iPad. It is public.
For some reason, they can't see it on your page or mine. Your page is not blinking, so I don't know, but it is what it is. So let's see what's up with Randall E. Toby. I hope you guys are enjoying this so far and getting a lot of jewels and ideas and conversation flowing. You guys can feel free to put your comments on the live. We will address them as soon as possible. Let us know what you're thinking. If we're missing anything or not approaching something correctly, please make that clear. If we have to get in line, we will get in line. All right. Want to say hello to Eddie Brown from 950 Lounge, who is the mastermind behind
don't tell him that. Don't tell him that. Even though he is because he won't publish nothing.
We have Thurman Henry from BronxNet, who is part of production and programming. We have Sue Fearless, who has her own organization that's empowering women and children, and she has resources, and it's a business movement as well. So yeah, we have some great people here. I'm not sure what's going on with Toby though.
Yeah, he's maybe you can reach out to him and have him to log back in, because he's in, but he's not in.
Okay. Where is he? So yeah, I feel it's been only 2 people, but I've been feeling very fulfilled. My heart is a little heavy, my anxiety is a little up, but we're good. It's in good reasoning. It's nothing bad.
I can bring in Neil Francis as we wait if you want.
I don't know who that is. Do you?
No.
Okay.
You. But yeah, you can see if Randall gets back in. But obviously, again, what we're trying to do is bring people off the ledge. Have a little feel good about yourself. Understand what we're going through is painful, but it's even more painful if you feel like you're alone and you feel like that there's no answer, and there's only one way out. And again, I mean, we have to continue to move and try to make change. If we have that despair, then what are we saying about the people who have lost their lives and the people who we're trying to give honor to and trying to say we're not going to take anymore? We have to continue and we have to fight. And similar to what Borough President Diaz said, is like, you got to continue to have hope. And again, that's true belief with that. So
yeah, we a lot of people have lost hope, but we can't lose hope. Nothing's impossible, guys. Everything is possible. So we just got to keep that mental frame going.
Without question. Have you reached back out to Neil?
You mean Toby? He's typing right now. Yeah.
Okay.
So far we're going on track, which is a good thing. But it says that the host had removed him. So I don't know what that means.
All right. It's funny. I'm doing this on multiple phones because I have multiple pads up.
Yeah, me too. I'm on all 3 phones.
Hold on. While we got a second, let me end that and come back.
Okay.
Because I don't know why that's not. Hold on. Let me just do it on this too.
I mean, do you want to end the Facebook Live and come back on as public?
No, that's good. That's good because I'm starting new watch parties now. I've added public to every component I have. iPad, 2 cell phones. I've added. So tell them
maybe it's your profile that's on private.
No,
it's not letting people
that
in.
doesn't. No, but I'm on this view.
Okay.
Not every. So try it now. I apologize. I don't know if Facebook is. You should have one login no matter how many devices you have. I did on every device I have up here. I've added it. So.
So has Toby called? Is Toby back on or no? Because he said the host had denied him. Maybe that was by mistake.
No, well, we denied him because we couldn't see him, so he had to log back in. No, we're still waiting for him.
Okay.
So you don't know Francis, right?
Huh? No, I don't know who that is.
I'm gonna remove him then. No, okay.
So he said he saw us, but he couldn't hear us. He's gonna try again.
Okay, fair enough.
So thank you for everybody joining us again. Please share the video. Again, comment. Thank you for your patience. You know, this is a whole little new world that we're on right now with the whole Instagram, Facebook, and, you know, the social medias have been acting up too because, you know, there's a couple of things that sometimes I'm not able to post. Simple as like a simple post, like not even dealing with any of this, just a post, and they're like denying me. So I'm sure there's a lot of us that are going through that, and we just gotta be patient. It is a social media platform. It's, you know.
Well, you know, again, I mean, we have no choice but to be patient, and we have no choice but to exhale and try to just get through.
Yeah.
I mean, again, you know, these are times where a lot of us are not in control. We're not in control of a pandemic. We're not in control of our financial revenue generation. We're not in control of things that people do to us.
Right.
But we have to take control back. And a big shout to my brother Craig from Grind Hard, the video producer of Non-Fee Lounge. And, you know, he came on our show the other day and was very poetic in his form of wording, because again, he's a guy who's experienced this multiple times. So it cuts deep with him. I mean, it cuts deep with me, but it really cuts deep with him. So I want to reach out to people. I know plenty of people. My own brother has experienced that rodeo several times. So it cuts deep. And we have to understand that while, yes, we can have this conversation and be upbeat and tell people and try to give ideas, everybody will come out with their own conclusion. Just like how like my mother used to tell me, you can't tell her how to praise God in church. You can't. Everybody praises different. In case in point, everybody mourns different. Everybody lashes out differently. But what we do ask is that when you lash out, or when you're doing these things, or when you're protesting, which is our right, and I'm a believer that protest changes things. We have to remember tomorrow, God's willing, if we want to wake up, we have to remember that, you know, again, those places that we rely on and really rely on now in a time that I don't think anybody's really have experienced, unless you was around, unless you're over 100 years old, almost 100 years old, and experienced the Spanish flu. This is all new to us. So we have to be strategic and think. And like I said, you know, put ourselves in positions where we're able to be successful tomorrow. Because again, the goal is for everybody, no matter what they do, is to see tomorrow. I don't know anybody who's out here trying to say, well, this is my last night, I'm going out with a blaze of glory. So we have to think about the next step. You know, be smart, be strategic, have forums like this. Even encourage your friends to have forums amongst yourselves with social media and all these forms of apps, you know, Instagram, Facebook, House Party. There's so many communication apps, Zoom, which we're using. You can find that congregation of people to be successful.
Toby's trying to come in. It will not let him come in. It says the host has removed him. So I don't know how to work getting him in. He's been trying 4 times. And he keeps getting the same thing.
It's the same platform. It's the same link everybody else uses. I don't know.
That's what it's telling him, that we removed him. So I don't know what we have to do on our end. I don't know if there's any way we can call him or add him. I have his phone number. I don't know. He said he's trying again. Now, if that Francis person keeps coming up, then maybe you should let that person in. Maybe
No,
that is.
I removed Francis because again, Zoom has a lot of issues with people, breaking into Zoom. So again, you said you didn't know who that was, and I don't know who that was. So I, pulled out. But no, I mean, all you have to do is log back in.
He did it 4 times, and it keeps telling him that we denied him. So we're just gonna either have to just move on with our next guest, whoever pops up in a few minutes, but that's gonna leave a 15-minute gap now.
Well, if you wanna open up to anybody else, you can.
I'm also getting a suggestion that maybe we should stop it and get back on.
Okay.
Stop our live and our Zoom and get back on.
So what I'm gonna do, I'm going to pause
and make sure everything is public. No 2 faces. You have to have the world icon.
Listen.
I'm just making sure.
I'm a little older than you, and I've been doing this a little longer too. Because just from age perspective, I'm putting myself out there. I've done that, but I'm gonna pause. We're gonna take a break from Facebook, and we'll be back soon on the DS since 9:50 town hall. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you guys. We'll be right back.
Stay there.